I think the disillusionment is, and the challenge of the disillusionment is that it's compounded, right? That it's not so much even a disillusionment that we're seeing amongst an institution. It really is institutions, right? And so when you have a situation, so let's take education, for example, and I'll just tell you just a simple reference from Baltimore. 5,000 kids will graduate from high school every year in Baltimore. 500 of them are prepared for college or careers when they walk across the graduation stage. 10%. So the 90% of kids, and these are the ones that graduate, even for the ones that move on to higher education, they're then having to take developmental coursework when they move on to college. The challenge of developmental coursework when you move on to higher education is this, is that it costs exactly the same, except you're getting no credit for it. So you have students who will then take whole batteries of developmental coursework, pay the same amount, and at the end of the year, after using all their freshman tuition and using aid or whatever it is to get them freshman tuition, will then have 6 or 3 or no credits to their name. Chances are that student will never graduate from college because if nothing else, their financial aid will run out, right? And so you've watched how disillusionment then plays itself out on so many different fronts. I think that the key thing and the key way that we have to address it is we have to be incredibly deliberate about the expectations that we're setting. And honestly, I think President Bush said it best when he talked about this idea, this soft bigotry of low expectations, where we just have different expectations for different kids who come up in different communities. I remember once, I wrote this story called The Other Wes Moore, talking to myself and another young man from Baltimore, who he's currently, with the same name from the same area, similar family backgrounds, he's currently in year 16 of his life sentence in prison. For, at the same time I had received a Rhodes Scholarship, he was convicted for the murder of a police officer. And so the story kind of detailed the lives of these two kids and what ends up happening that causes this split with the same names. And I remember once speaking with him, and I asked him, we were talking about Baltimore, and I said, so do you think that we're products of our environments? And he looked back at me and he said, actually, I think we're products of our expectations. And I thought to myself, he is absolutely right. We were not products of our environments. We were products of our expectations. And someone once said to me, it's a real shame that you lived up to your expectations and he didn't. And I told him, actually, the real shame is that we both did. We both lived up to our expectations. And so when we're talking about things like creating hope and opportunity, the very first thing we have got to do is this soft bigotry of low expectations that we have for so many kids and so many communities, for things that they were born into, and for things they should not be ashamed of. We have to be able to psychologically change the bars and the barriers. Booker T. Washington once said, and he said it best, and I'll paraphrase when he said, if you break a man's spirit, you do not have to escort him to the back door, because he will walk there himself. And we have far too many people who are walking there by themselves.
Thank you.